Hello, hello. Good. Well, it's morning here. Anyway, today we are going to, from my book, read this chapter. Ooh, see, it's got all four eyes where we say integrate. Integrate, mind the gap. Individual, indivisible. Intellect, already messed up. Let me start again. Instinct, intellect, intuition, and intention are all integrated aspects of you. They are indivisible. Each of these aspects has inputs and needs. I do believe in synergy, but that doesn't work unless the components are unique and independent. A collective simply works together, and the sum of its parts is just that. Synergy is when a group of individuals work together toward a goal. The sum of the parts is somehow more. I believe that. I just need a simple example. Just a cog. Perhaps gears. A gearbox of all the same size gears adds nothing. In fact, there is loss to friction, so the output is diminished. But a group of different sized gears assembled and working together can increase the speed or power. If you remove even the smallest cog in the gearbox, it won't work. A school of fish moving in unison appears to be a large, menacing creature. Every physical thing is made up of smaller parts, down to the atomic level. If you knew how to assemble from the atomic level, you could build anything. As Richard Feynman said, there's plenty of room at the bottom. Nanotechnology is working at the atomic level, building things one atom at a time. This is an exciting future and promises to change everything. Even this is a stopgap step. Once you've reached the atomic level, the physical laws change if you go lower still. If you know how atoms are built, you get below the periodic table of elements, and you can build elements as needed. Once you are in this quantum level, you are at the boundary between energy and mass. If you understand physics at this level, you can build a replicator or transporter as portrayed on Star Trek. I'm re- I am reduced to me, the individual. There is no more reduction. Now I can change. Life is change. Change is good. Now I have a choice. No matter what, there is always a choice. Yes, I know often we feel there isn't a choice because the consequences are imbalanced. But you can always pay the consequences, so you do have a choice. Free will is the right of every individual. This is where freedom's foundation lies. It is the fundamental right of every being. Service to others starts with allowing freedom. Forcing an individual into a group is not freedom, even if that group is beneficial to that person. Allowing an individual to participate in a group is freedom. Truth sets us free. Truth is determined by consensus because the whole truth and nothing but the truth cannot be known by any single individual. Truth versus facts. Truth is a collection of facts. Enough facts should give an indication of the truth. Some are adept at collecting facts and distorting the truth. I think this is a skill taught in school with debate teams. The skill of finding the truth is not emphasized. The skill of presenting the truth is. This may seem the same, but the latter allows room for distortion of the truth. Remember, truth is determined by consensus. So if you get enough individuals to believe, that is the truth. Distortion is everywhere. Some more about me. I told you my writing is meant to be conversational. I just had a thought. Writing is like preaching. It's a one-way communique. It's easier to say what you think without people interrupting with questions. Even if you allow comments in your blog, you have the chance to finish your thought before the interruption. I often have thought I wouldn't like to be a preacher, a pastor preaching, because it always felt one way to me. Teaching at teaching at people rather than speaking with them. Now I realize this is not necessarily so. That was an aha moment for me. I will have to think about that for a while. Being a loner is part of me. Rather than an outcast, I am an outlier. I choose to step aside and observe. I choose to allow others before me. It is based on a meme planted long ago to serve others. The first shall be last and all that. Not because I want to be first at the end, but because I accept the belief that there is a higher power there. There's a higher power there to ensure fairness in the end. I want to believe. I look at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions. Illusions? I recall, I really don't know life at all. You know, you know how, when you are a teenager, you know everything? Where does all that knowledge go? It seems the older I get, the more I don't know. The person I am is more aware of the vastness of reality. And the reality I perceive is such a small part of the knowable. I am at the center of infinity. That is mind blowing. There is an infinity outside of me and an infinity within. I am, I know, I can, I will. Instinct, intellect, intuition, and intention. Every individual is different. Well, I'm not, but everyone else is. Motive. How can it be known for sure what the motives of each individual was? Here is why God is needed. Of course, it doesn't prove God's existence, only the need. Now, the Akashic records may hold the answers, but it is only accessible by the individual. So the individual must judge him or herself. Reincarnation is likely a need too. It is needed because a lifetime is just too short to get it right. Again, the need does not prove the existence. How long did humankind exist before inventing God? The knowledge of good and evil seems a prerequisite. The Garden of Eden is portrayed as idyllic up until they ate that fruit. It is simply a metaphor? And why hairless? This seems dramatically opposed to evolution. All these questions. Putting information and teaching videos on the web forever is almost like the Akashic record. Just think that, though, one good EMF pulse from the sun could eliminate most, if not all, that information. Then we would be in the dark ages again. Imagine radiation so strong that even the paper is yellowed or destroyed. Without power, who can access the data remaining on hard drive storage? How long would it last? Perhaps the ancient cultures had the equivalent of the internet. Hey, Tower of Babel? Perhaps they found they could store information in stone. They took it for granted. Ha! Jiminy Cricket, as told by Stever. Some of you may not know the story of Pinocchio, so let me explain who he was and what his cricket friend Jiminy was to him. If you haven't seen the Disney movie, it is worth a watch. Our story starts with Geppetto. I know I said Pinocchio, but just bear with me. I'm going somewhere with this. Geppetto was an aging craftsman who had no legacy. Being alone, he had no wife and thus no child. He longed for a child to hand his knowledge and worldly possessions to when he died. Morality is a bitch. Anyway, Geppetto didn't really know where boys came from, so he just decided to make one because, god damn it, he was a creator. So he created a little boy puppet, a marionette to be precise. He would pull the strings of his puppet and pretend he was a real boy. It was kind of creepy and kind of sad, really. He got to the point of naming his puppet Pinocchio. Okay, happy now? He hung up Pinocchio every night, wishing he was a real boy, because, well, he couldn't pull his strings forever. Geppetto didn't mind bugs and such, so when the cricket came into the workshop to get out of the cold, Geppetto let him live. Geppetto was a kind, friendly guy. He was the type who only wanted to serve others, to make them happy. Even though the sad, friendly craftsman was alone with his puppet and pet cricket, he did not go unnoticed. The Blue Fairy was watching all this and felt sorry for the old guy. She had a little magic up her sleeve and decided it would be nice to Geppetto. She overheard his wish that Pinocchio was a real boy and decided to upgrade the wooden boy to a full CGI 3D animation. He no longer needed someone to pull his strings or a ventriloquist to provide a voice for him. He became autonomous. Pinocchio asked the Blue Fairy why she did this to him. Not in an ungrateful way. He was just trying to figure out who, what, where, and how he was. The Blue Fairy said she made him a live-action doll because Geppetto wished for a real boy. Pinocchio asked if he was a real boy. The Blue Fairy told him no, he wasn't a real boy. She couldn't do that. Only Pinocchio could make Pinocchio a real boy. She explained that he had to prove himself worthy of being a real boy. For the time being, he was just a fully animated 3D hologram. Then the Blue Fairy flew away, leaving Pinocchio to contemplate his fate. The little cricket gave out a chirp when she left. That was pretty weird, he said. Pinocchio was young and full of questions and didn't know that people don't talk to insects. He asked the cricket who he was. "Jiminy's the name," exclaimed the cricket. "Pleased to meet ya." They were instant friends, like on Facebook. Around this time, all the commotion finally woke Geppetto, and he came in to see what all the ruckus was about. He went to check on his puppet and found he wasn't there where he hung him. He found Pinocchio in the corner talking to the cricket. "Shouldn't have had those mushrooms last night," he said. Conscious conscience. The hallucination was persistent, though, and the talking cricket was a good witness. This was quite a shock to Geppetto at first, but he was overjoyed, and once he accepted the reality of it, he decided to go out and get all the paperwork going for passing on his legacy to his new animated friend. It was nice to have this AI to talk to. He told Pinocchio not to do anything wrong while he was gone. Pinocchio had no clue about the difference between right and wrong. This was obvious by all the annoying questions he started asking. He was quite wearing on old Geppetto. Finally, he just said, "Just ask your conscience," and left. "What the hell's a conscience?" Pinocchio asked the cricket. Rather than try to explain, the cricket just said, "I'll be your conscience," and jumped up on Pinocchio's shoulder. Jiminy just whispered in Pinocchio's ear. It seemed like a good fit. Pinocchio wanted to explore and went outside with Jiminy on his shoulder. Oh, it was a strange thing to see a stringless puppet walking down the street. For the most part, people just ignored him. Jiminy was trying hard to explain life to the newly created wooden thing, but Pinocchio's head was made of very dense wood. They came upon a puppet show in progress. Pinocchio said, "Ah, these are my people." The puppet master was overjoyed to have a fully animated CGI automaton working for him. Finally, his archaic show could compete with the Marvel Universe. Well, Jiminy took a lot of time explaining how the world works. He said this job might seem like a great gig, and that the management said they were looking after him, but they were exploiting him. "Exploitation is just what service to self people do," explained Jiminy. Pinocchio listened to his conscience and laughed. Well, not without a legal battle, breach of non-existent contract and all, but the two were able to escape. Pinocchio tried his hand at politics, but his nose kept growing longer whenever he made promises. It was too much work trimming off that branch every night. Pinocchio was starting to realize that he did not have a career because Jiminy told him the last one or two were exploitive. While contemplating this, Pinocchio came up to a multi-level marketing MLM seminar. The fortune he could make with no effort on Pleasure Island awaited. It was a no-brainer, they said. "Perfect for me," said Pinocchio. Seemed like a great group of guys, too. Jiminy tried his hardest to explain that you can't get something for nothing, and it was probably a scam, but one of the upline smacked Pinocchio hard on the back and knocked the conscience off his shoulder. Pinocchio signed up for the no-risk guaranteed offer. Jiminy read the fine print on the document after Pinocchio signed the agreement. It said they guaranteed there was no risk to the management of the Pleasure Island MLM. Pinocchio was whisked from meeting to meeting, having more and more life sucked out of him. Jiminy was doing all he could just to hop out of the way of all the other stooges who signed up. Pinocchio started growing donkey ears and a tail. This is when Jiminy started noticing how many asses were in the meeting. Nobody was advancing, but they were all transforming. The transformation promised was working, but nobody transferred into anything but an ass. The exit led out to a sales lot for asses. Donkeys Are Us, I think it was called. "Well," Jiminy whispered into Pinocchio's ear, and the two went out the other door. Around this time, Geppetto came home and found the place evacuated. He logged on to the bank portal and tracked where his missing credit card was being used. Then he set off to find the thief. He tracked the expenditures through Pleasure Island and took off to find his creation. He met up with Jiminy and Pinocchio and chartered a boat out of there. It was a fun ride until they entered into rough waters. Well, the waters were rough because Monstro, the whale, was thrashing about eating. He devoured the boat in one bite. Big whale. Well, now they were in a fix. The cricket was fine because there was slime enough to eat for a lifetime. Pinocchio was fine because he didn't eat. Geppetto was not fine. No food and short on air. This was a bad thing. Pinocchio started a fire, which was really stupid because it sucked up what little oxygen there was for Geppetto. Jiminy said, "Great job." He was being sarcastic, but Pinocchio didn't know that, so he said, "Thanks." Luckily, the fire went out, but the smoke made Monstro gag, causing him to projectile vomit the contents of his stomach. The shock of the cold water helped Geppetto gasp some air in just before going underwater to drown. Jiminy said, "Good job," in a more sarcastic tone, and Pinocchio said, "Thanks." Around this time, Pinocchio noticed Geppetto's lifeless body floating nearby. Geppetto was just too waterlogged and heavy for Pinocchio's slight body to provide enough buoyancy to keep him afloat with his head above water. Pinocchio said, "Oh, Geppetto, I have always loved you like a father." This made Pinocchio's nose grow just enough to provide the buoyancy he needed. Geppetto was saved. Jiminy was the only one who noticed the blue fairy hovering above. She looked down on the situation and said, close enough. Pinocchio became a real boy and drowned with his real father. Jiminy rode the floating carcasses all the way to shore, hopped off, and was never seen again. The end. Okay, that was silly. My real purpose for going through that was to point out how we all start off life like Pinocchio. We are wooden and inexperienced. We are trapped in this animated 3D puppet shell while we learn our life lessons. Some would say the only time we become real is when we die. I say let's be real now. We are all like foolish puppets desiring to be kings, now lie pitifully crippled after cutting our own strings. Randy Stonehill. What we must keep in mind is that our four aspects of body, mind, soul, and spirit are all one and the same. No one aspect can be detached from the others. Each aspect must be fed, and yes, there are inputs for each aspect. The body, what I say is instinct, requires food as input. Eat well. Your physical body needs sustenance. One of your first instincts is to activate is hunger. If you feed your body well, provide the nutrients and water it needs, it should last forever. So, an input for your physical body is food. Another is water. Your body needs both to continue living. You can also feed it and cause irreversible harm. Obesity and diabetes run rampant in our country. Fast and furious. It was generally accepted belief that a person could not exist longer than 10 days without food. At the time, if a person went without food for 10 days, he or she died. Empirical evidence would prove the fact. Then a doctor started writing about his own 30 or 40-day fast. As more people learned of this, the length of the time a person could survive without food grew. Soon, it was believed a person could live 10 to 50 days without food. And people began living longer when shipwrecked or otherwise forced to live without food. It is curious how powerful belief is. If a person gives up the will to live, he or she will soon perish. Wallace Wattles teaches that it is better not learning the facts because the facts are incomplete, imperfect. They will skew your belief. It is better to visualize perfection and accept that as fact. Recently, I stumbled upon an ad for fasting with food. This piqued my interest because, well, not eating food was the downside of fasting. The company packages nutrition that mimics fasting by restricting carbs and proteins while supplying essential fatty acids and other nutrients. This intrigues me. It is not so much a weight reduction diet as longevity diet. This extra intriguing for me. The company sells prepackaged food to use during the 5-day fast. The regimen is to have one 5-day fast every month. I should find out more about what kind of food are used for mimicking a fast. I could work at presenting an eating fast program. Nothing to do with speed. Studies have shown that limiting caloric intake can prolong life. When a body is in fast mode, there are certain systems that turn on and go overboard, healing the body. Sadly, many of the researchers have died young. I guess they were pushing the body too far. But that does not negate the positive advantages of fasting. Balance in everything. I am excited about this now. I am feeling a focus coming on, eating my way to 150th birthday. The last time I fasted for more than 20 days, I only lost 20 pounds. I didn't do it to lose weight, and I'm pretty sure I didn't lose too much muscle mass. I think I was starting to at the end of it, though. It was long enough without food that at that time, 28 days is the longest I fasted with only water. I wonder if a 3-day a week Eating fast is something people can insert into their weekly routine. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the TWIT diet, the TWIT fast. It could be it could easily become a routine. All this talk about fasting is making me hungry. Read and listen. Do I write because I'm a writer, or am I a writer because I write? I like to communicate through the written word. I just don't know if others appreciate communicating this way any longer. I thought reading was fundamental, but it doesn't seem enough anymore. It seems the only way to reach people is via video now. At least that is the push on social media. The 8 seconds we have to attract attention only allow one or two sentences, depending on the reading ability of the viewer. A visual hook in the video may be more effective. Who knows? I'm sure there have been studies. Perhaps we need to retrain people on how important it is to read and why reading is good for the mind, good for the eyes, good for the discipline, good for the soul. Reading is what I love to do. It is a deeper stimulation than listening to audio, although reading along with the audio may be more beneficial. But learning with multiple inputs is quicker and more memorable. Audio-visual presentations along with written bullet points may be the best way to learn. Hands-on tactile learning with aromas may be best. Stimulate all 5, 6 senses simultaneously. Does anyone remember the concept of smell-o-vision? Thought. If there are 7 chakras, shouldn't there be 7 senses? Perhaps perhaps it is the 6 because the base chakra is at the ground. Meditate on this. Perhaps it all comes down to our need for entertainment. Crowd participation feeds the hype. I see its effectiveness in megachurches as well as business meetings. What is it about leisure time? Is this a modern problem? Not really. I mean, there were coliseums in Jesus' day. I am intrigued. It makes me wonder, are there any animals in the wild that seek entertainment? Perhaps otters, they like to play. Amusement. Perhaps it activates some creative portion of the mind. So why do humans need to be entertained in groups? I wonder if it has anything to do with the collective subconscious. Perhaps there is a way to create energy and siphon it off the power to the power elite. The manifestation power of the secret is in stealing of creative power of the crowd. NLP is the discipline used to connect the power source of the crowd. This may be reflective of the problem encountered at the Tower of Babel. What a Nimrod. See how fuzzy it gets? Meditation is good for your physical body too. Well, now, if each individual knows this is what happens, rather than avoiding the crowd situation within an individual can tap into the synergistic power of the crowd when 2 or more are gathered in my name. We are all connected anyway. If we are joined together as parallel processors, we are a supermind. In the same way networked computers may have processing power stolen, we can have our mind stolen. There are physical hackers. Like siphoning off fuel, these elitists steal our power. Meditation and such are like antivirus protection programs. Once an individual is established and grounded in responsibility, then an outreach should occur. Of course, continual grounding should not be omitted. It is what meditation is for. Yoga is best applied alongside meditation. I see these as useful for instinct and intellect. I don't see either of these skills as a group of effort. Yes, an individual may attend a few classes to ramp up the basics, but I think both yoga and meditation should be done alone. Prayer also, prayer and supplication. What is the difference? Is there a connection with intuition and intention? Communication keeps spirits up. Realistically, what makes a good writer? This question reflects a state of mind I was in all day. I was thinking a broader vocabulary would make me a better writer, but it seems to me communication and storytelling are the keys. Using bigger words could eliminate a large swath of the readers. I would think it is imperative the reader understands the vocabulary too. Now, a good writer will use words in the context to teach the meaning, but that's a lot of work for both ends of the communication. I think it boils down to just keeping the conversation going. Me, myself, and I are a good representation of the 3 aspects. Perhaps these fit with the first 3 I's, the first three I words respectively, instinct, intellect, and intuition, but that leaves intention out. I wonder if there's a fourth word available to us to use in illustrating the book of I. What could be a first-person pronoun that presents intuition? It may be a bit of a stretch, but using my name could fit the bill. Me, myself, and I, and Stever, representing instinct, intellect, intuition, and intention respectively. Well, no, because referring to myself as Stever is in the third person. Damn. I wonder, since intention must be assigned to either myself or an outside entity, perhaps the best word would be mine. I believe intention should always be from within myself because I am fully responsible for myself. So it would be possessive, right? Unless I hear of a better idea, the first person pronouns for the book of I will be me, myself, I, and mine for instinct, intellect, intuition, and intention, respectively. And that ends this chapter. So we only have 4 more chapters to go, I think. Anyway, we will finish up this week, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. If not, I am. So if nothing else, it's helping me learn to read out loud. So most of my reading is done inside there, and so it's nice. I have to slow down and actually articulate my vocal cords and tongue to match up with those wacky words I put in there. So blah blah blah. You guys have a great day, and again, if anything stood out to you, whatever, tell me about it. All right, have a good day.